Have you ever had the unsettling feeling that no matter how hard you try to change your life, something invisible keeps pulling you back to the exact same place, like you're running but never actually moving forward? You're not imagining it. You're not broken. And you're definitely not alone. Millions of people experience this quiet frustration every day, but almost no one talks about it out loud, because it's hard to explain without sounding crazy. You do the work, you change habits, you think differently, you even feel like you've grown, and yet, somehow, reality snaps back into the same patterns, the same relationships, the same limits, the same feeling of being stuck. And here's the part most people never hear. There is a scientific reason this happens, a real one. Not motivational talk, not spiritual fluff, real discoveries that shook physics to its core. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your efforts haven't been translating into real change, why your awareness feels like it's expanding but your external world hasn't caught up yet, and why once you see this mechanism at work, you can't unsee it. This is where quantum consciousness, spiritual awakening, and hidden reality quietly collide. And when they do, it raises a question that's deeply uncomfortable, but impossible to ignore. Because if consciousness really does play the role scientists now suspect, if the observer effect isn't just a lab phenomenon, but something woven into everyday life, then it means consciousness creates reality in ways we were never taught to recognize. And before we go any further, there's something you need to know. Something physicists stumbled upon in 1927 that changed how reality itself is defined. Because if they were right back then everything you believe about why your life looks the way it does might not be the full story at all. And that's exactly why so many people are waking up to this right now, often without realizing what's actually happening inside them. A lot of you are probably feeling something as you hear this. Maybe a subtle tension in your chest, maybe a sense of recognition, maybe a quiet pull you can't explain. Just sit with that for a second, and if one word naturally comes to mind that describes what you're feeling right now, let it land. Curious, unsettled, seen, resistant, awake. Drop that single word below. Nothing more. I read every one of them, because patterns start to appear when enough people tune into the same frequency. And if this is landing differently than other videos you've watched, if something just clicked in a way that's hard to explain but impossible to ignore, let me know in your own way. That feedback tells me what resonates at a deeper level, beyond algorithms or trends. There's a small group of people who feel drawn to exploring reality from a completely different angle, not because they're looking for answers, but because they're ready to question the questions themselves. If you're one of them, you already know. No pressure, no labels. But if you're here for a reason. All right, let's go back to 1927. In 1927, at the 5th Solvay conference in Brussels, something happened that quietly rewired how reality is understood, led by physicists like Werner Heisenberg from the University of Göttingen and Niels Bohr from the University of Copenhagen, when they began testing what would later be called the double slit experiment with single particles. The setup sounded almost childish in its simplicity. Fire a single electron toward a barrier with two narrow slits, then watch where it lands. Common sense said it should pass through one slit or the other, like a tiny bullet. But what happened next broke the rules of classical physics. When no one tried to observe which slit the electron passed through, it behaved like a wave, spreading out and creating an interference pattern, as if it traveled through both slits at once. But the moment scientists tried to observe it, even subtly, the wave collapsed, and the electron snapped into behaving like a particle. Read that again. One electron, no crowd, no disturbance, just the act of observation, and the result changed. This wasn't philosophy. It was repeatable and deeply unsettling. The observer effect wasn't a metaphor, it was measurable. Heisenberg formalized it the same year with the uncertainty principle, showing that the more precisely you observe one property of a particle, the less you can know about another. In other words, observation isn't passive. It actively shapes outcomes inside the quantum field. This means reality, at its most fundamental level, doesn't fully exist in a fixed state until it's observed. Possibilities float, probabilities coexist, and then something looks, and one version becomes real. Scientists later tried to escape this implication with thought experiments like Schrödinger's cat in 1935 and Wheeler's delayed choice decades later, but each attempt only deepened the mystery. Wait, read that again. Because this isn't just about particles in a lab. This is exactly why reality feels different when you're paying attention, why coincidences cluster when you're emotionally present, why moments feel more real when you're fully aware, and why you sometimes sense that something shifts the second you notice it. You're not imagining it. From the perspective of quantum mechanics, consciousness isn't outside the system. It's part of it. Your attention collapses possibilities. Your awareness participates in reality creation, not symbolically, literally. Every moment you're conscious, you're filtering infinite potential into a single experienced outcome. And here's the part they don't emphasize in textbooks. If observation shapes reality, if consciousness expansion changes how the quantum field resolves itself, then what happens during the hours you're not really conscious at all? When you're distracted, repeating patterns, running on autopilot. Because if reality responds to awareness, then what is it responding to when you're not fully there? That autopilot question, there's an answer, and it's worse than you think. In the early 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet at the University of California, San Francisco, ran an experiment that quietly shattered our assumptions about free will. He asked participants to make a simple voluntary decision, like moving a finger, while their brain activity was measured. What he discovered was unsettling. The brain made the decision several hundred milliseconds before the person became consciously aware of choosing. Your brain decided first. Consciousness found out later. Around the same time, neuroscientists began mapping what's now called the default mode network, a system in the brain that activates when you're not focused on the present moment. It's the network that runs when you're daydreaming, worrying, replaying the past, or imagining the future. Add to this the reticular activating system, the brain's filter that decides what you notice and what you ignore, and suddenly the picture gets uncomfortable. Basically, your brain runs on autopilot most of the day. Not a little. Most. You ever drive home and realize you don't remember the last 10 minutes of the drive? You were there, but you weren't present. That's the default mode network in control, which means the majority of your perception, your reactions, your emotional responses, and yes, your reality, are being generated subconsciously. Around 95% of what you experience is filtered through patterns you didn't consciously choose. Old emotional loops, learned expectations, repeated frequencies. From a physics perspective, that means most of your interaction with the quantum field isn't coming from awareness, but from habit, and that heaviness you feel sometimes, the exhaustion that doesn't match your sleep, the quiet sense of resistance when you try to change something, that's not weakness. That's your subconscious mind running old programs at the same vibration it's been running for years. Your nervous system knows the pattern, even if you don't. If your chest just tightened hearing this, or your stomach dropped for no obvious reason, that's recognition, not fear. Recognition. Your body already understands what your conscious mind is just catching up to. This is why you've always felt something was off, why motivation alone never fixed it, why surface-level change never lasted. You weren't wrong. You were responding to something real. But here's the part that almost no one talks about, because it raises a question that's hard to sit with. If 95% of your reality is being created unconsciously, then whose reality are you actually living? Because once you ask that, you're forced to confront something much deeper, and that's where things start to get uncomfortable. Look, I need to be real with you for a second, and I'm stepping out of the explaining science role here. I spent years thinking something was fundamentally wrong with me, not in a dramatic way, in a quiet, exhausting way. I woke up every morning feeling heavy for no clear reason, anxious without a story, disconnected even when nothing was technically wrong. I wasn't some enlightened person. I wasn't spiritual. I was a mess trying to function like everyone else and failing at it silently. The cost of that confusion added up fast. I lost friends because I couldn't relate anymore. Small talk felt unbearable, like chewing cardboard for the sake of politeness. I'd sit in rooms full of people and feel completely alone, wondering why things everyone else cared about felt empty to me. I remember nights thinking maybe I was just depressed, maybe I needed medication, maybe I was overthinking everything, maybe I was broken, and this was just who I was now. That belief was heavier than anything else. Then I stumbled into this research, not looking for answers, just trying to survive my own mind, and something cracked open. The science didn't fix me, but it reframed everything. I wasn't broken. I was waking up, and waking up hurts. It's disorienting. It strips away illusions before it gives you anything solid to stand on. If you've ever felt like you don't belong in the world the way it's structured, Like you notice patterns others ignore. Like existing itself feels oddly exhausting. I need you to hear this clearly. You're not alone. You're not defective. You're aware. And awareness is uncomfortable before it's empowering. The comments under these videos prove it over and over. Different people, different lives, same words. I thought it was just me. That's not coincidence. That's connection. If hearing this gives you even a small sense of relief, if it helps knowing there are others navigating the same internal shift, there's a quiet community forming here. No pressure, no labels. Just a space for people who are tired of pretending everything feels fine. And if something in your body reacted just now, if you felt seen in a way you didn't expect, drop a 111 below. Not for me, for each other, so you can see you're not the only one. All right, now that we got that out, let's talk about what you can actually do with this. Here's what changes everything, and most people miss it their entire lives. You've been treating your sensitivity like a flaw, like something to suppress or fix, when in reality it's the opposite. You're not broken. You're operating at a different frequency, a level of perception that doesn't just react to reality, but senses it before it fully forms. That gut feeling you keep second-guessing, that's not anxiety. That's information. That coincidence you brushed off as random, that's your consciousness brushing against the field before your rational mind catches up. You've been taught to distrust that layer of awareness because it doesn't fit neatly into how reality is supposed to work. But that doesn't make it wrong. It makes it inconvenient for a system built on predictability. Now think back to what we've already uncovered. The double slit experiment showed that observation changes outcomes. The observer effect revealed that reality doesn't settle until it's perceived. Your unconscious patterns demonstrated that most creation happens below awareness. Put together, they all point to the same unsettling truth. Consciousness isn't just something inside you. It's what reality is made of. You're not passively moving through a fixed world. You're participating in its construction, moment by moment, whether you realize it or not. Which means that right now, as you're watching this, something is happening. You're collapsing possibilities. You're selecting one version of reality over countless others. The fact that this video appeared in your feed isn't random, even if the algorithm thinks it is. Something in you was already tuned to this question. Every time you felt different growing up, every time you questioned why things felt shallow or misaligned, every time you trusted an intuition you couldn't explain, you were right, all of it. You have access to a layer of perception most people will never touch, not because they can't, but because they won't slow down long enough to notice it. And that loneliness you felt, that sense of being disconnected, that wasn't a malfunction. It was an upgrade. You were seeing beyond the surface, beyond the script, beyond the simulation everyone else agreed not to question. But here's the part they don't prepare you for when they talk about consciousness creating reality. If you're powerful enough to influence your reality simply by perceiving it, what happens when you encounter someone doing the same from a completely different frequency? What happens when realities overlap, clash, or interfere with each other? What happens when two observers collapse the field in opposite directions? That's exactly what the next video is about. But before that, before you go, let's try something together. Just for a moment, close your eyes for 3 seconds and notice what's happening inside you right now. Not the thoughts, the feeling underneath them. Open your eyes. Let a single word surface. Don't analyze it. Don't explain it. Just drop that word below. One word only. When enough people do this at the same time, patterns emerge that say more than any comment ever could. This channel isn't built for everyone, and it's not meant to be. It's for people who feel too much, notice too much, question too much, the ones who never quite fit into the surface version of reality. If that resonates, you already know this is your space. No pressure, no convincing. There's no algorithmic trick here. Just truth, explored together. The door's open, walk through it or don't. That part is always your choice. The next video drops in 3 days, and it goes somewhere most people avoid. What happens when two conscious observers create conflicting realities in the same space? Why some people drain your energy the moment they walk in? Why others elevate you without saying a word? Why you can feel someone staring at you before you ever turn around? It's going to change how you see every relationship you have. Your consciousness brought you here. What happens now is your choice.